Let's take a look at a generic. This one's labelled Aneng, but it's made by various companies. But it is a battery tester with an LCD display that powers itself from the battery under test, but apparently doesn't really load it down. But we can maybe fix that. So this is a nickel metal hydride cell, and the voltage it's showing is 1.36 volts, which is reasonable enough. This is a lithium cell of unknown quality, and it is measuring at, once a connection on here, because it doesn't have a pip, 3.95 volts, or 3.94-ish. But rather than just, well, hold on, there is one other test. I can stick a PP3 in it. It's got this little thing at the end here that you can stick it in, and it says 8.5 volts. But we'll give this a more accurate test. I shall dig out the fluke meter, and the bench power supply can provide the power, and we'll actually test this with that. One moment. Here we go. I've got it set up. So the fluke meter is showing 1.491 volts. It's bigger, it's bolder, it's rougher, it's tougher. In other words, sucker, there is no other. It's a rugged fluke meter. So let's get this open and get these connections put on and see, does it compare? Actually, get the angle right so it can actually reflect some light. Not the best clip strip, but anyway, I shall get them on here. I'm not doing very well, am I? I get one connected, but not the other. There we go. 1.5. So roughly 0.0. Yeah, not that far out. 0.009 out. It's pretty accurate, really. It's not too bad. Right, I shall put this out the way, and we shall open this and see what's inside, and then see what the circuitry is. I shall reverse engineer it. I'll just put the fluke down, turn the power supply off, zoom out just a little bit, and bring in a screwdriver. I have been told, because I featured this on a unbagging video, I've been told that one of the first things that will happen is the wire on this sliding thing will probably pop off. That's not really a surprise, but that's an easy fix. Maybe a bit of strain relief on it. Is everything just going to pop out? Probably. Okay. Right. That contact has jammed. Oh, it's a very thin wire. No wonder it's going to pop off. But yeah, that could be reinforced with a bit more slack. And yes, that could be improved. And a bit of strain relief put in. Maybe a dot of glue onto this, or just heat staking it. But anyway, here's the circuit board that we want to see. So I shall whip that out, take a picture of it, and then we can explore it. One moment, please. Reverse engineering is complete. Let's explore. And there's a lot to learn off this little circuit board. It's quite interesting the way it generates the power splash in the different parts of the circuitry. So let's zoom up in this and take a closer look. So to start with, the LCD connections account for most of the connections going out of this chip. You can see the row of plated through-holes at the bottom, and they equate to the back of the circuit board, which has the gold pads on the zebra strip that connects onto the LCD. And it is worth mentioning that it's designed for a different size zebra strip, but they've used a shorter one and just shuffled it down in there. Quite unusual. But let's take a look at the circuitry, because it is very interesting. We have the common negative that's used for both the battery connections, and then we have the positive for the 9-volt supply that goes via a diode to a voltage regulator that generates a 3-volt supply for the microcontroller. But it also goes via these two resistors as a potential divider to provide a dedicated 9-volt input voltage reference. For the other connection, the 1.5-volt approximately input, first of all, there's polarity protection circuitry. There's an A1SHB MOSFET there, with its gate pulled to the 0-volt rail, so that if you connect the polarity around the wrong way, that would effectively be positive, and this would be negative, and it won't turn the MOSFET on. But as long as the polarity is correct, it will turn it on, and that then provides power down to this chip via an inductor. That is a boost converter that pulses that inductor and generates a 3.3-volt supply that then goes over to the 3-volt regulator via a Schottky diode. And the 1.5-volt circuitry also has its own potential divider leading to its own pin. Let me show you the schematic. And here it is. So the easiest bit of this circuitry is the 9-volt input, the one for testing your little PP3 batteries. And it's got the voltage divider here, 100k and 10k, feeding directly across to the microcontroller. That's the orange to the orange. And it's got a standard diode that looks like a 1N4148 type diode, leading to the voltage regulator, which then has a decoupling capacitor and output and then powers the microcontroller. So in that instance, it's just dividing that down to 3 volts and taking a voltage reference and then displaying the results on the LCD display. These are just kind of rough dividers, so I'm guessing it's calibrated for the 9-volt input and the 1.5-volt input independently in the software. The 1.5-volt bit is that bit more complex. For a start, it's got its own potential divider, the 47k and the 10k that goes over to the microcontroller for reading the voltage. And there's the MOSFET. It's an A1 SHB, which is the partner to the A2 SHB, and it has its gate here pulled down to the 0-volt rail by this 1.5 megohm resistor. So that's purely polarity protection, quite an odd configuration. Normally you'd expect the drain to be going up to the positive supply rail, but in this instance it's not. They always seem to reverse it for that. But it goes to a 100 microhenry inductor and then this mystery chip. Now, I thought that was going to be putting 5 volts out to allow for a generous margin of, say, going through the Schottky diode and then something to actually regulate down. But as it is, it's actually putting out 3.3 volts, going through the Schottky diode, but it's marginally above 3 volts, but it does still manage to create a stable 3-volt supply from that. But I personally would have chosen a 5-volt regulator for that. This circuitry here will actually pose a bit of a load on the battery though. It's worth mentioning, if you wanted to add a load yourself, you could put a resistor between the 9 volts and the 0 volts, and then a different resistor between the 1.5 volts and the 0 volts inside the unit of whatever extra load you wanted to put in the cells, so you could actually get an accurate voltage indication of them. I'll just realise my power supply is on here. I'll turn it off. But if you do connect the 1.5 volt battery, it generates 3.3 volts, goes through the Schottky, gets converted to 3 volts, powers the microcontroller, and then it looks at that divider there to actually display what it's measuring. So it's quite a complex little circuit. Interesting how they've done that. It's also these little tiny 3-pin chips. They're amazing. The ones that convert with an inductor have a very low component count and can create stable 3.3 and 5 volt supplies or other voltages. But that's it. Not much else to say. I will be putting this back together and I'll probably reinforce this wire. I'll make it a bigger, more robust wire and maybe add a bit of hot melt glue or something like that just to provide a bit of strain relief on it as well. But quite an interesting little thing. It is accurate and it does continuously update. Julian Eyelet featured some that only just took a snapshot as soon as you connected it and then held it. This one does update continually. If you vary the voltage up and down the meter and the power supply, to say, the display follows suit. But quite neat. An interesting little battery tester.